right, so I want to take a moment to talk about synchronicity, coincidences, because there really, in actuality, is no such thing as a coincidence, right? And this particular book I have read plenty times. It's The Spontaneous Fulfillment of Desire by Deepak Chopra, harnessing the infinite power of coincidence. And this particular passage that I read today, just doing some random reading. I just always like to just go over the books that I read that I have in my archives in my library. I like to read them over and over again because that's what the purpose is, to read them for transformation, for them for the message to get embedded into your subconscious, into your way of being, so that you can actually put the principles and the everything into practice. Okay, it's not, we don't read just for entertainment, to pass the time. We read for transformation, we read for change, we read for a purpose. And so I wanted to just go ahead and read this passage. Thought it'd be helpful to someone right now. And kind of speaks to something that's very personal to me. And I thought this example that he gave in this book was very appropriate for someone, because it resonated with me. And this is on page 131 in The Role of Coincidence. And he writes, "Here's another example from my life, one that illustrates the slow mechanics of synchronicity. It started one day when I was about 10 or 11 years old, and my father took me and my brother to see a cricket match between India and the West Indies. The Caribbean countries had amazing cricketers, some of whom could hurl the ball 95 miles an hour. During that time, India was being walloped by the West Indies, down by 5 wickets for a few runs, which is a disaster in cricket. And then two young players came on the scene. To protect their privacy, I'll call them Salim and Mohan. They were amazing. They civilized the game, defended every ball, and scored sixers at every turn. Because of them, the India team went on to win this absolutely impossible match. There were near riots in the stadium from celebration. People burned the wickets. For my brother and me, these two cricketers became our heroes. All we did was dream of cricket. We created a cricket club, and we started a scrapbook to collect information about Mohan and Salim. 40 years later, three friends and I were traveling in Australia. We couldn't get a taxi to the airport because they were overwhelmed with business due to a cricket match going on between the Australia and West Indies teams. We couldn't even hire a car because they were all taken. Eventually, the hotel concierge told us that there was a limousine going to the airport. There were people in it, but they didn't mind sharing. We felt lucky to find a ride and got in the limo. Inside were a woman named Kamala and another man. As we drove to the airport, every once in a while we would hear the driver of the limo screaming, and we wondered what was going on. He told us that the West Indies was soundly beating the Australia cricket team. At that moment, my consciousness was totally flooded by memories of that childhood match. It was such an amazing feeling that I shared it with my fellow passengers. The match had taken place decades earlier, but I could still describe it in every detail. When we finally got to the airport ticket counter, the clerk told Kamala that her flight wasn't scheduled until the following afternoon. She had come on the wrong day. She asked if she could get a flight that day. But no, they were all completely booked. She called her hotel to arrange another night's stay, but they too were full thanks to the cricket match. So we suggested that she come with us to Brisbane. One of the friends told Kamala about the conspiracy of improbabilities, how coincidences were clues to the wheel of the universe. She ended up joining us on our flight. On the plane, the Indian fellow sitting on my left recognized me and pulled out a copy of one of my books, The Seven Spiritual Laws of Success. He asked me if I would sign it. I asked his name, and he said Ramu. I said, "Okay, Ramu, what's your last name?" He said Menon. I said, "You're not Mohan Menon's son, are you?" He said he was. Mohan Menon was my hero decades ago at that cricket match with my brother. We ended up talking for 2 hours. I was totally overcome with emotion. For me, it was like talking with the son of Babe Ruth. I asked if he played cricket, and he said not now, but in his time he had played with some great cricketers. When I asked whom he played with, and he said Ravi Mehra. As he said that, Kamala sitting behind me squealed. Ravi Mehra was her brother. When they started talking, it turned out that they each had business contacts the other could use, and were later able to help each other in a way that brought both of them considerable wealth. And I was the lucky catalyst in transforming the lives of these two strangers whom I had just met. Some 40 years after that first cricket match, the complex and unforeseeable web of relationships created fresh opportunities. You never know how and when any life experience will reappear. You never know when a coincidence will lead to the opportunity of a lifetime. And so that is very indicative of, very illustrative of how things work in our lives. I've had similar situations, and I'm sure if you would take the time to really think back in your life, you've had similar situations. And if you haven't, then I would encourage you to read this book, to get in a mind state of positivity, a mindset of manifestation, a mindset of possibilities, improbabilities, and that the intricacies of life we really can't see until we get to the other side. And so there's reason for hope. There's always a reason for continuing on in our efforts. There's always a reason for sowing good seeds. There's always a reason for, again, just being hopeful. And that's the message and the encouragement that that I was that I downloaded today, that I received, that has encouraged me, and that's what I want to impart and pass on to you. And I would recommend this book. I will put a link in the description as well underneath. And peace and blessings. Stay rich, stay righteous. God bless.